Hey, what's going on, everyone? How you guys doing? Welcome back to another episode of Patio Commentary. My name is Matt Jarbo, and today we're going to be looking at the 2016 action thriller, The Accountant, where Ben Affleck plays a high-functioning autistic savant accountant who works for crime families and also doubles as an agent unofficially for the U.S. Department of Treasury. This is one that I knew came out back in 2016. I was unable to see it when it came out. I just never got around to it. And then I know the sequel came out. And so one night I sat down and I watched both of them back to back on Amazon. And like I said, I wasn't too sure what to expect from this. I'd heard from a lot of people that it was good. I'd heard from a lot of people that it was a lot of fun and that it was something to check out entirely. And then, of course, the sequel got high praise for John Bernthal's role in that film as well. His performance was quite good. So I wanted to see what exactly was going to be happening in this film. This is a movie that it's a lot of fun, albeit it feels like it's out of place in time, if I'm being honest with you. So directed by Gavin O'Connor, written by Bill Dubuque. I mispronounced that. I apologize. The story is interesting because it's kind of like all over the place. And that's where I think it works and it doesn't work. So, I said Ben Affleck plays Christian Wolff. He's autistic. He's an accountant. He works at a small accounting firm and a small, like strip mall in, I think, like Plainview, Ohio, like completely unassuming. But on the other end, he works as this accountant for criminal organizations to find, embezzlement, theft, to uncook their books. Like that's what he does. And that's where he makes his money. And the whole time we're under the impression that he's being tracked by Roy King, played by J.K. Simmons, who is the head of the Treasury Department, in order to find out who this guy is. And so he brings in another woman. Her name is Mary Beth Medina. She is a good analyst, but doesn't want to advance in the ranks, doesn't want to draw any attention to herself. Kind of a foil for Christian Wolff, right? Like he sticks to the shadows because he doesn't want anyone to know what he does. She sticks to the shadows because she just wants to kind of like fit in and blend in because she doesn't, she has a past. She has a criminal past. And that's what gets used against her because she lied about it on her federal application. And so Roy King goes, listen, I can throw you in jail, or you can help me find this accountant so I can end my career on a high note. So she's like, okay, fine, I'll do this. I want to stay out of jail. So she starts looking through. She ultimately ends up figuring out who Christian is. But Christian, in the meantime, gets hired by John Lithgow, who's in this movie, he's the CEO of a robotics company who's trying to uncook the books before they go public in order to find out whether or not, there's money missing and anything else. So he goes on in there and he does this, they have this whole montage where he's just looking through everything and he ends up uncovering $63 million in embezzled funds, and does this all in one night. And, he's helped out a little bit by Anna Kendrick, who plays kind of a younger, accountant in the firm. She's the one who discovered the irregularities that brought him in. And so they kind of have this weird back and forth. He's just, super off-putting and she's trying to clearly chum it up in the way that Anna Kendrick does, right? Anna Kendrick brought pure Anna Kendrick energy to this movie, which I liked it actually quite a bit. I didn't know she was in it, so it was a nice surprise. I've always liked her. I've always said, Twilight movies are terrible. They're god awful, but we got Anna Kendrick as a result of that. So that's a good thing, right? You got to look on the bright side of life. Sometimes when a movie hands you lemons, you make lemonade is really what I'm trying to say. Anyway, they got their whole little relationship thing and she's kind of, being a little interested in him and he's just being really off-putting, but he does clearly kind of like her. And, it's an odd dynamic because Ben Affleck is so much older than Anna Kendrick in real life, and I can't really help but get that out of my head because this came out 9 years ago and she was 30, 31 and Affleck was probably in his early 40s as well. And it's kind of funny to see that. He was at 42 when it came out. So, it's not like this, it's a terrible dynamic, it's a terrible age difference, but I think now that I'm seeing it 10 years after it came out, it just, it just kind of looks like that, I guess, to me. But in the meantime, we do get to see this kind of mysterious figure, this mysterious kind of hitman. What we are believing to be the antagonist of the film. This is John Bernthal. And, he's great in what he's doing, but it's definitely like unrefined before the Punisher, John Bernthal. Like, this is after Shane from The Walking Dead, but this wasn't quite Frank Castle. He's playing this in-between type character, and it shows his range quite a bit. Again, it's a little odd to see Bernthal, especially towards the end of the movie when he's like emotionally vulnerable and he's upset, because it reminds me of like watching him before The Walking Dead. Like younger John Bernthal, where he played like less of a hard ass, like less of a hardcore military guy. Now he's kind of gone into that particular typecasting, especially in the sequel. But, here, he seems like a formidable opponent, and he's unaware of who the accountant is, and the accountant is unaware of who he is. But that kind of comes to a head when they find out that, that the head of the company has been cooking the books himself in order to artificially boost the revenue coming into the company in order to then make the stock price when it goes live a lot higher to make a lot more money. And that he just wanted to, get that irregularity taken care of in order to make sure that there is no problems. And then, of course, they pin it on the CFO of the company by making this guy commit suicide under the threat of his wife having very bad things done to her, which I thought was a good scene, actually. I thought that was interesting to sit there and use that against this guy, because I'm a type 2 diabetic and this guy's a type 1 diabetic. But it's like him overdosing on insulin is an interesting way of having him commit suicide. And of course, that was something that Rita, played by Jean Smart, who was John Lithgow's sister in the movie, she was like, that doesn't make any sense because this guy has had diabetes for years. He knows how to manage his blood sugar. And so then, of course, she has to die too. Jean Smart is great. She's only in like 3 scenes in the movie. Like, that's it. And I'm like, man, like what a waste of Jean Smart. I thought that was a little bit iffy. Because you think John Lithgow is going to be like the good guy here. He's not. He's actually the bad guy, which was kind of cool. And then when you find out like he did everything in order to make more money while going live, but then everything kind of turns to shit, and he had to kill his best friend of 30 years and kill his sister in order to protect everything. And then also, his biggest mistake was trying to kill Dana. Because I think at that point, that's really the only thing like Ben Affleck kind of cared about, right? Because he's upset that he can't finish his work, right? He wants to understand why he is like, why everything happened. And I loved about that actually personally is, as a person who has OCD, the whole lack of finishing something, it gets under my skin, and so he's kind of put in that position where that does kind of put him off kilter. But then, hitmen come to kill him. He takes them out. They're going to go kill Dana. He goes and takes them out. Doesn't really tell Dana what he does, but he protects her. And then, of course, he goes and fights all the bad guys and takes them all out in order to finish the job, which would be to kill John Lithgow. But in the process of this, he discovers that Braxton, John Bernthal's character, that's his younger brother. The two of them fight because, there was the death of the dad. And, Bernthal blames Ben Affleck, and Ben Affleck, never really looked out for his brother in the sense of like trying to find him when it was all said and done. All these things. Now, what was more interesting though, like that was an interesting story. What was more interesting though was the B plot of the movie, was the whole Roy King part of the film. Like, how did all this kind of happen, right? And that's what I thought started making the story a lot more interesting, but also a lot more confusing. So, Affleck is this accountant, works for these bad guys, cooks their books, and then feeds the information to Roy King, making him the, the deputy director or the director of Treasury Department, right? Like, gives him all of these high profile cases with all of this information to make a lot of arrests. And he does that because, he is not a bad guy. He works for these bad people, but he's ultimately trying to, I think, make amends for it. There's a little bit of, again, it's kind of odd there because it's like he's autistic. His father was a piece of shit who made them fight in order to kind of lean into the stimuli versus running from it to kind of turn him into more of a weapon, if you will. He then ends up like learning about the accounting from Jeffrey Tambor, who's another accountant for the mob turned informant. And then when Roy King, tries to use Tambor as the informant, witness for some cases, They let him out and he gets killed by the bad guys. He gets tortured. And then that's when Christian Wolff goes and takes all of them out because they killed his friend, right? He's got the high morals there, and then ends up sparing Roy King's life, and then ends up working with him through the help of a British woman who provides all of the information. Now, at the end of the movie, we find out is really the daughter of the guy who runs the neurodivergent, like the whole, it's, I don't want to sit there and say that it's like that it's like a crazy like storyline overall. You know what I mean? Like the movie is good. It's like, but there's a lot going on, and a lot when you really start kind of breaking it down becomes a bit overly complicated. And like, cause I was watching it and I was having a lot of fun. And then I'm like, but then I start thinking about the plot. I'm like, why is it he's doing this? They don't really explain. You kind of have to read between the lines, because like he wanted to go to this Harbor neuroscience place, his treatment center, but his father was like, no. Okay. Who worked for the military, who was basically a psyops specialist, was like, no, you can't do it. The mom ends up getting pissed off. She ends up leaving the family. That just then moves makes the dad go further into it, taking the boys to Indonesia and like making them fight a trainer. Then I think probably, like to the point of well past where it would be considered appropriate or legal to do so, but he keeps pushing them further and further and further. And all these things, and you're like, okay, the backstory is tragic. We understand the backstory. And then you get to, it just, parts of it are so kind of like all over the place. And that kind of ties into like the reception of the movie. I think the critical response puts it at about 53% based on 285 critics reviews. But the audience enjoyed it and they gave it an A scale on CinemaScore, and even Post-Track gave it an 84% overall, with 64% of people saying that they would recommend the movie. So I think that the whole thing with this movie is it is good. There are problems is really what I'm trying to say. It is really fun. There's a lot of really good moments, a lot of good character work. There are plot holes that are there, and you are meant to jump them yourself. And then there's that. And like, okay, fine. It's good. I'm glad I watched it. Would I watch it again? Yeah, absolutely. I think when they do a third movie, and I think they will do a third movie, I will marathon all three, because I like these sort of things, right? Give me more to do, give me more to care about with these characters. And they do so in the sequel, and they did so here as well. I kind of want to see Anna Kendrick come back and get some, right? Even though I was kind of criticizing it a little earlier, it's like, you know what? Everyone needs love. And that's going to be part of what I talk about in my review for the second one. So stay tuned for that. My name is Matt Jarbo. This has been Patio Commentary. Your thoughts on the movie. Do you recommend it? Do you not recommend it? Do you like it? Do you hate it? Where do you stand with The Accountant? Let me know. I'll talk to you guys later. Thank you again for listening. Please like and subscribe. Have yourself a great day, and peace out.